roughly an hour and 15 minutes has transpired since we applied our 4 bags of stamp overlay. So I came over and I did my test, and it feels about ready. So when we start stamping, what you're looking for is when you pick up that first stamp, you don't want any of the material adhering to the bottom. If the material is sticking to the bottom of the stamp, that's an indicator that it's probably too early. Go ahead and wait another 15 or 20 minutes, depending on the conditions. Now, on our project here, we're going to use a liquid release, which really lends itself to these stamp overlays. I've found sometimes in the past, if you use a powder release on these polymer modified cement-based toppings, sometimes the polymer actually locks the release in too much, and it's hard to clean off that powder release. So I really stick to the liquid release. Now we are going to go tint this. So we're going to spray liquid release first, then we're going to stamp it or imprint with the serpentine cobble stamps, and then once we've stamped, we're going to spray a light tint of a powdered release that we've put into a clear liquid release. And what happens is the color settles down in all to the nooks and the crannies, the texture and the grout joints, and it gives it a real nice antique. One more tip before we start. I like to get a matching texture skin from the manufacturer and send somebody around the perimeter first, because oftentimes when the stamps overlap, you don't get full texture. So we'll just go through and pre-texture the edges before we stamp, as you can see here. That way when the rigid stamp overlaps here, we know we've got full texture all the way around the perimeter. You'll notice on this serpentine cobble that the top of the stamp is much wider, see the dimension from here to here, than it is from here to here. So you need to use that as a gauge. So over here, we've got the small side down, the larger side up, and simply on the next pattern, you reverse that. So now over here, the small side is over here, and the larger side is back over here. And just again, for demonstration purposes, you reverse it. On the next one, bigger up here, small down here. So it's really important to get this serpentine cobble to run the right way. Just remember, you flip the tools on every other tool. Now it's just the weight of the tamper. So we're on this at a nice time, perfect opportune time. It's just the weight of the tamper here. Very little pressure. I could almost walk them in, and we refer to that as puddling. We're just almost kind of walking the tools in. Once again, what I'm looking for is I want to make sure none of the stamp overlay material is adhering to the bottom of the mat. Now watch, when I take the handles, I pull the handles inward so it doesn't drag the stampable overlay. And I'm looking, and that's just an awesome texture. Very little, very little. So this is an indicator we can keep going along on this one. On stamp overlays, when you're tamping, you always want to try to have a mat against a mat here. I don't want to remove a row, because if I just pound this one by itself, like I've already removed this one, for example, to show you the texture, it's real easy to bury one edge. And what happens is you don't want your stamps to look like this. So try to always have a tool against a tool when you're stamping so you have a nice uniform texture. Now what we're going to do is, you can see the grout joint. We're going to also continue the grout joint right over the edge, so it looks like little blocks have been installed. I really like that detail. However, if you choose not to stamp that edge like that, you always want to go back and at least clean this edge up. It just looks a lot cleaner and crisper. So now that we've completed our stamp work, this is all it takes. You can either take a trowel or a margin trowel, and what I'm trying to do is simply clean up this edge so that you could put your plant material or sod right up against it. And it just looks a lot cleaner if you're not stamping and detailing that edge. Okay, we've successfully stamped our serpentine cobble. Looks great. A couple of observations. You might want to consider, when the stamp is removed, lightly rolling this little squeeze line out from where the stamps come together, or it's so minimal, tomorrow morning they would just chip right out with either a margin trowel or a cold chisel. Now, for a little bit of an additional antique, You can use a tinted spray-on material. There's a lot of options available. Check with your manufacturer what they recommend. And just all we're going to do is mist it on, just to get a little bit of an antique, as you see here.